Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morgan, Motor City Madmouth, along with my North Carolina compadres, David Hodges. What's going on, David?
Not too much. Scott, Rick, how are you?
All right,
Good.
Rick. Charlotte Bats. I guess the Charlotte Bats aren't in the NLDS or the ALDS, but at least they probably at some point contributed to the players out there somewhere along the line. With that said, okay, we're going to take the focus off the championship series, at least the final eight. I want to talk about something that actually does impact it a little bit, and that's the fact that Philadelphia Phillies owner John Middleton wasn't fully on board with one of a move that actually former GM Matt Klentak made pertaining to JT Realmuto. He ended up get this, they traded two top prospects. He had Sixto Sanchez and George Alfaro to the Miami Marlins. And I'll tell you what, he's not happy about it because he didn't want to trade in the first place without a long-term deal. So Realmuto could be headed for free agency. But when you talk about the return that the Marlins got for Sixto Sanchez and George Alfaro, a battery made, and this Sixto Sanchez is a stud, guys. He throws over 100 miles an hour, and he's got some electric stuff. This is unbelievable, isn't it?
It really is.
I mean, the Miami Marlins are in the playoffs, and this kid's built for the long haul. So, but you know, again, we'll be seeing him in the NLDS, Sixto Sanchez, and I know you guys don't know a lot about Sixto Sanchez, but you know, when you talk about some of these short-term moves and you don't get a little bit of extension capital on it, you paid Bryce Harper. You know, let me tell you, Bryce Harper will be telling Middleton, you better pay this guy a lot of money. So, Rick, what are your thoughts about the fact that it looks like the team that called the Miami Marlins bottom feeders at the bottom end of this deal?
Well, you know, I mean, it's the playoffs, so I mean, it happens. You know, you gotta roll the dice. I remember, but sometimes we can come and get you. I remember when the Red Sox traded Jeff Bagwell to the Astros for Larry Anderson because they were in that playoffs, and we all know what happened to Mr. Bagwell. Became he's in the Hall of Fame. So, you know, but you got to roll the dice, and you know. Marlins are in the playoffs, and and to me, they're one of the big surprise teams. I don't think a lot of people saw them really going there, you know. So they rolled the dice, and they looking like they want to win. So we'll see what happens in the future with it.
Dave, some thoughts about it?
Yeah, well, it's like Rick mentioned. You know, it's definitely one of those trades where, you know, like I said, it seems so one-sided, but. It really, you know, a couple of years down the line, you never know what you're going to get. You know, it's like I've always, you know, when talking with my other buddies, you know, about all the top trades that have gone on in sports that, you know, people call ridiculous. You know, you never know. Again, you never know who you're going to get. You know, it's, you know, well, obviously, you know, you're getting two top prospects, but you never really can know, you know, how they might pan out. You know, I remember, you know, back in the mid '90s. You know, when I was out there in Seattle, how, you know, Rick mentioned the Red Sox, how Seattle traded for, I believe it was Mike Timlin and Heathcliff Slocum.
Right.
And then who did the Red Sox get? Derek Lowe and Jason Varitek.
Right.
So, you know, of course, Varitek was still, you know, working his way through the minors, and you know, I think he was still down with the Tacoma Rainiers when that happened. But, you know, yeah, it just, you know, if you can get, you know, a prospect, and you know, you have the coaching staff that sees their potential, and it's, you know, really just getting a player in the right system. You know, it's, you know, again, you know, thing I talk about with buddies of mine, you know, talk about, you know, Seattle trades, you know, Charlotte sports teams that have made trades. You know, I always tell people, you know, that always say, how can we get rid of Kobe Bryant? Do you think he would have been a quarter of what he was had he stayed in Charlotte?
True.
You know, it's just you never know, you know, how these trades, you know, are going to pay off down the line. And, you know, it's, you know, Kevin Costner said in draft day, you know, someone always comes out looking like a donkey, you know, in trades, and of course there he's talking about the NFL draft, but yeah, it's definitely one of those things, you think one team is totally getting, the top star, and as you say, Real Muto is about to hit free agency, and, Sixto Sanchez, he's a stud for them. So, yeah, and in the end, it paid off for the Marlins.
Yeah, one trade that I'll never forget was when the Detroit Tigers traded John Smoltz, a Class A prospect, for Doyle Alexander. Now,
Yep.
keep in mind, Alexander was undefeated and helped the Tigers get to the 1987 American League Championship Series, only for them to lose to the Minnesota Twins. And he had another productive year or two, but we all know that John Smoltz, as David Hodges said, ended up in the Hall of Fame. It was one of those things that was a win-win trade for both teams, but it's all comes down to mainly a win-now mindset is really what it is and where you're at. This happens. It's not a matter that one team looks any worse than the other. This is just common in pro sports where you'll make that trade and hopefully get you over the edge, but then you have to pay for it. And the way general managers look at trades, they look at them in ways where you have the immediate benefit, the short-term benefit, and the long-term. And it just depends on where you are at that particular point. Now, everybody wants that championship, so there are sacrifices that have to be made for it. I get that. And that's what we saw. So let's talk about Theo Epstein. Okay, we'll talk about it future with Tom Rickett. As Dave mentioned, the drought buster with Chicago Cubs and the Boston Red Sox.
Mm-hmm.
Does the Chicago Cubs go downhill when Theo Epstein leaves?
It definitely won't be the same. You get a GM in certain clubs that, they change the whole dynamic of the team and the way the team is perceived, and maybe that's that's bad. It's kind of, it's not going to be good for the team in the long run. When you say, well, okay, all the years of futility, it was 108 years. The Cubs fans went through. Obviously, it's a lifetime. It's probably several lifetimes put together for some people. That never saw the Cubs win a series. I don't think so. I personally, I don't think. I'm sure a lot of people disagree, but I always been of the mindset that not one player makes a team. And granted, obviously Epstein is in the front office, but they've got the talent there. I don't see them, going on a downhill slide, and hopefully, once fans can start being, allowed back into the ballparks once, COVID fades away, and and it's obviously, the what they call the Wrigley faithful, the South Side faithful, and and that's one team where the fans never will abandon them. I don't think they go downhill. I mean, maybe it might be a little bit of leveling off, to use that term. But I guess it's again one of the situations where only time will tell.
Well, the one thing about Theo Epstein is his stops are usually about 10 years at the most, and then he likes to go on somewhere else. So, that's what he's talked about. That 10 years, time to move on. And and I think Jed Hoyer is a guy that they're very high on to eventually succeed him. Anyways, those are the reports that I've heard out of Chicago. But nevertheless, let's face the reality. Theo Epstein is that they don't vote him in, but he'll get in the Hall of Fame if you can break the Boston Red Sox and the Chicago Cubs. You just can't get any bigger than that. You just can't.
Oh no.
Rick, what are your thoughts about Theo?
Oh, I think they're going to miss him tremendously. I think they better get used to that World Series ring that he brought, because it's been a long, long time since they get one. I think they'll still be competitive, make the playoffs, but I don't see them being a championship caliber team with Epstein. I mean, he's a genius. I mean, he took two of the biggest franchises in the biggest droughts, and he won a World Series. And that's definitely going to get him in the Hall of Fame. The Red Sox had the curse of the Bambino, and the Cubs had the curse of the GOAT. And he just said, "Curse? What curse?" And he did it. And I mean, to do that now with one franchise in a drought, but two in two different leagues, it's impressive. So they're going to miss him tremendously. I think getting rid of Joe Madden was a big mistake. He's a great coach. I know the Angels were terrible, but Joe Madden was great. So if I was the Cubs, I get ready to put that, build that Joe Madden and Theo Epstein statue right now in Wrigley Field, and I would like kiss their feet, because it's gonna be a while till they win a World Series. I don't know, it'll be 108 years, but it's gonna be a while.
Yeah, I mean, when you can break drought to that magnitude, a drought buster, that's just unbelievable. So
Really is.
let's talk about the matchups that we have now in the ALDS and the NLDS. One, of course, is going final. The Houston Astros doubled up the Oakland A's by a score of 10-5. We can talk about the Astros getting in with a sub-500 record at 29-31, but let's not kid ourselves that they are a very experienced team. They really, really are. And when you lose Justin Verlander, and Dusty Baker, to me, is a really good manager and had to settle that ship. We all know that they've got a bullseye in their chest because of the cheating scandal. But let's face it, the Astros are playing pretty good baseball here, and they're doing it in the postseason. They're one of 8 teams left. Rick, what are your thoughts about it?
Well, I wonder how many trash cans they've been banging to get some wins in the playoffs. Look, I have not been a big supporter of the Astros. They still don't get it. Carlos Correa went around and said this idiotic statement saying, I know everybody is not happy with us, and I know people wanted us to fail, but we're here. Ha, 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 ha. So, I'm glad for Dusty Baker. I'm a Dusty Baker fan. That was probably the best move they did by getting him, because he's someone who's respected and beloved, and people want to see Dusty. So if they do win the World Series, I love to see it for Dusty Baker. But for the rest of the Astros, forget about it.
Dave?
Yeah, it definitely seems like, with statements like that, they're really kind of poking the bear. And, they've been lucky in this regard. The fact that, there's not been, obviously with COVID happening, fans were not allowed. So, I can only imagine what they would have heard if there were fans in the stands, had, COVID not happened. But yeah, I too am a Dusty Baker fan. Yeah. Ever since I can remember, even, when I've always loved baseball, I've watched it religiously. And, I just going back to his days with the Giants, obviously managing that ball club. And yeah, I've been a fan of his. He seems just like, a true gentleman, a true student of the game. And should the Astros go all the way again, like Rick said, I'd be happy for Dusty Baker, but the rest of those guys, well, as far as I'm concerned, somebody can just mail them their rings, because, that's not a parade I would attend, and I don't have any plans to travel to the Houston area anytime soon. But again, with COVID, should they win, I don't see how a parade would even happen. But rooting for him for Dusty Baker. Other than that, not a chance. So hopefully the A's can, rebound from this and, definitely come back and make it a series.
Yeah, I mean, Dusty Baker's won everywhere he's gone, albeit he didn't win a World Series as a manager, but certainly one of the most respected baseball men out there. And let's lose sight of the fact, Rick, that anybody that tried to go ahead and bang a trash can, you can definitely hear them at games with no fans. So you're not going to weed out the noise there, but still. So, I don't see them, whether they beat the A's or they won't, don't worry, you still have the Yankees and the Rays to contend with as well. And I think that either of those two are going to send Houston packing. But you know what? You guys don't get an opportunity to talk about other sports on this show because it's a baseball broadcast. But I'm going to incorporate a football narrative to it since we're in the Houston area. Let's talk about Bill O'Brien getting fired from the Houston Texans. I know, Rick, you have some very outspoken opinions on this, and I can see you're smiling from here all the way to Alaska. So go out there and give it a rant or give it a roll, Rick, about the firing of Bill O'Brien. Romeo Crennel is the interim head coach right now for the Houston Texans.
Well, I think we talked about this last Thursday, that we're talking about firings. I said Bill O'Brien's going to be gone by the end of the season. I was wrong. They got rid of him right away. So You know what? I hate to see someone go, but I mean, I don't know what happened with him. I guess he got all that power and just thought he can do whatever he wanted. Trade away one of your best players to get literally a journeyman running back and to attack that player that you just traded is beyond stupid. Hopkins is one of the best players in the NFL. He's in his prime. It's not like it's not like he's Larry Fitzgerald. He's in his prime. And to get rid of him and to bash him, it was personal. And I said, that's it for him, because he's been on the hot seat with his playoff record. And I don't know why he did it, but he got rid of him. Thank God Deshaun Watson got re-signed. That's all I can say about that. But why he did, yeah. So why he got rid of him is beyond me. But he deserved it. I mean, I have no sympathy for him. I've been defending him for a long time, even with his bad playoff record. But when he got rid of Hopkins, it was just a head scratcher. I still can't figure out the trade out. And I said, that's going to be his undoing. That's going to be the nail in his coffin. And they went 0-4. So it's time for him to move on.
Well, not only did they get rid of him, think about it, okay? Jadavian Clowney, you let him go in his prime. He made a lot of bold moves, gave up a lot of draft capital. And then I said, I could have tolerated his playoff record a little bit. But when you make those types of decisions and you run guys out of town and then you lose draft capital, then you're 0-4 and you lose to the 0-3 Vikings, that's embarrassing. It just is. And I think this is, and then he goes ahead and says he really wasn't worried about his job. Well, guess what? You know what? Maybe it never meant anything to you to begin with, because now you're on the unemployment line. I'm sure he'll get paid for about a year or two anyways. So whatever thing when he ends up on his contract. My question is, I personally don't think he deserves another NFL head coaching job. He had a great opportunity with Houston here, and he absolutely squandered it. He did.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I don't know if it was just the power that they gave him to being a GM or something. Clowney, I wasn't too upset about, because Clowney wanted to go. I mean, he wanted to get out of there as soon as he can. So they just did what they could and just get rid of him, because he didn't want to be there. He was unhappy. Hopkins, I just didn't get it. I just didn't get it.
If he didn't want to be there, don't you think that Bill O'Brien's the reason why he didn't want to be there? Think about it for a minute.
Could be, possibly.
You don't want to be somewhere. It's usually because you don't want to play for the coach.
Yeah.
In instances, that happens quite a bit.
Yeah.
Texans aren't a bad franchise. I mean, J.J. Watt's there, and Deshaun Watson's there. The only thing to worry about with Deshaun Watson is great. Who do you have to throw the football to? Is Will Fuller good enough? Brandon Cooks, just to name a couple. They're not the impact of DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
DeAndre
Hopkins. I think they should look at Marvin Lewis if they're going to go get a head coach. He did a great job with the Bengals. I know his play. I know he didn't win a playoff game, but I mean, he was there for a long time. He made the Bengals like a playoff team or a respectful team. I would look at Marvin Lewis if I was the Texans.
Well, he'd be a steadying influence, that's for sure. Marvin Lewis has always run a steadying. Mm-hmm. What's your take on this, Dave?
Well, yeah, it's kind of like Rick said. When you make a coach the GM as well. And I know I mentioned on this, program before, a coach that's also a GM, not named Bill Parcells,
right?
Where he says, if you want me to cook, you better let me shop for the groceries too. When you trade away, all the best players and you're like you say, you're not helping yourself. And, if he truly made that a toxic environment down there,
right?
Again, really, who is going to look at him, for a head coach? He may have just basically, taken his name off any, GMs or owners, future coaches board. He could have just, I don't say that use a soccer term relegated, but he just really could have just made himself an offensive or defensive coordinator for the rest of his career. Which are respected positions, but you trade away your top receiver. Like as you guys have said, when he's in his prime, you're kind of like, why would you do something like that? Again, unless it was Hopkins was like Clowney, the coach had just made it so toxic down there, and maybe he had the attitude of, well, it's all about me. I am the coach and the GM, so everyone cower before me, maybe he just made it to where they just don't want to be there anymore. I mean, I remember, Rick, I don't know how much, you follow the Panthers, but I remember when D'Angelo Williams, he left, went to Pittsburgh, and then became a free agent and says, well, there's a list of 3 teams that I will not play for. Well, Carolina was one of them. Well, Carolina got rid of the GM. He said, okay, now there's 2 teams I won't play for. So, I mean, yeah, D'Angelo Williams had a stellar career here. But, you just see, sometimes, GMs and coaches, or either or, they can really, breed just, an environment of toxicity. And some players, they will not, they won't do it. And as you guys mentioned, to call him out, there's no way he can say this is business. It's all personal. You call someone out, it is personal. Whether he thought, this guy has too much power in the locker room, which should be mine. Maybe it's time to get him out of here. So, so it's all mine. Or, maybe he was, Hopkins was a guy that, was drafted by another GM. I'm not, too fluent on my Houston Texans history, but, and of course, any head coach in any sport, they're going to want to have their own players. Players they brought in, they molded, or was molded by their coaching staff. But yeah, I mean, 0-4, all the top talent is gone. You said you'd be surprised if he lasted the season. Again, 0-4, you're kind of surprised he even lasted to game number 4.
Well, you know what? O'Brien is the first coach that has been fired after 4 games since Joe Philbin was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of a nugget. So let's go back to baseball. Just thought since there's a Houston connection, that I would incorporate that in, and I know that it is updated news, so why not talk about it?
Mm-hmm.
With that said, all right. The other game that will be played today, you've got the New York Yankees and the Tampa Bay Rays. Well, this is going to be this one's going the distance. These 2 teams hate each other, totally different philosophies how to build. And the Rays, I'll tell you, they're dangerous. And the Yankees, if they can put it back together and they're not made out of glass, but they're made out of steel, we're in for a Donnybrook with this one. And by the way, just to let people know they're in the bubble right now. The Houston Astros and the Oakland A's are playing at Dodger Stadium. The New York Yankees and Tampa Bay Rays are playing at Petco Park. So think about it. The Yankees and the Rays are playing in San Diego. Who'd have thunk it? But they're in the bubble. So let's talk about the Yankees and the Rays. All right, Rick, lead it off.
Well, this to me is like David versus Goliath. You got the historic Yankees who won, so many championship World Series, and you got the Rays who, we talk about the A's with Moneyball. I think the Rays got Pennyball because they do great things with very, very little. And so this thing is definitely going the distance. They do hate each other. And, the Yankees have been hurt. They've been inconsistent. And the Rays have they keep rolling and rolling and rolling. So I really do like the Rays in this series in an upset. And, they just seem to impress, so I like them a lot, and we'll see what happens. But this is going to be one fantastic series, and I like the Rays, to be quite honest with you.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, this is one, if you're a baseball fan, you definitely got to keep on the television. Yeah, like I said, these are 2 teams that are, obviously, of course, the Rays also have their rivalry with the Red Sox, just up the highway from New York. But yeah, it's a great rivalry, and yeah, I agree. I definitely think this is going to go the distance. Part of me wants to say the Rays, but the Yankees in the postseason, you just never know. I mean, really, when you get to the playoffs, you just you throw out the record book, and it's, no pun intended, it's a whole new ball game. But so I mean, it's definitely going to be a good one. It's it's going to be the series to watch. But Rick, I'm going to go against you here, but I think I'm going to say the Yankees in 7.
Okay.
Well, no, you're the same in 5 because.
5. Oh, okay, that's right.
But that's okay. You're thinking ahead of the next round. Just kidding with you, Hodges. It's okay. We'll go from 3 to 5 to 7. No big deal.
That's right.
But no big deal. Nevertheless, so You know what? I've been going with the Yankees all along. I really have been, but I'll tell you what. I only do that for the sake of consistency because I'm not going to sit here and waffle like Brett Favre would. And not sure this, not sure that. You know, I've been saying the Yankees and the Dodgers from the beginning, and I still have to believe in that prediction. But if the Rays do get past the Yankees, it's certainly not going to surprise because they do things only one way, the right way. So yeah, this is definitely going the full five. Now we'll go on to the National League, and obviously a team I'm all very close with is my Miami Marlins. Don Mattingly, Miguel Rojas went on our call today and said he definitely deserves a Manager of the Year. Why not? Everybody on the planet in their right mind should give him the Manager of the Year. And on another call I had yesterday, they are trying to bring the Yankee culture here to South Florida with this organization. You know, Derek Jeter built it homegrown. Same philosophy between Michael Hill, Derek Jeter, and Don Mattingly, who got an extension last year, a couple of years. This team is really headed in the right way. But they're taking on the Atlanta Braves over at Minute Maid Park in Houston. And when you think about the Marlins and the Braves series, okay, the Marlins were 4-6 against the Braves this year when they played, and they won 4 games all of last year, you know, during a full season. So they're closing that gap a little bit. So, you know, obviously the Braves have had their number, but the Atlanta Braves have been saying, we knew from the beginning of this season the Marlins are going to be a lot better. And indeed, the Marlins have played what they're inspiring. They love each other as a team. This is such a feel-good story. It really feels good that I can sit there and listen to all these guys and talk to them on a regular basis and get a feel for what the pulse of this team. So, you know, a lot of people would probably pick Atlanta, but I'm going to let my heart go with this one and go with the Marlins. And I'll tell you what, they feed off this bottom feeders thing. Miguel Rojas was wearing that shirt today over the our media availability, and the Philadelphia Phillies, a team that got knocked out, were the ones that called them bottom feeders. And social media, these guys are rallying behind this. They're on house money to begin with. So, but when you look at the way the Marlins are doing things, this team, unlike their last 2 championships that they won in 2003 and 1997, they paid to get these titles. There's some sustainability here with this team and the culture that they have, bringing in veterans to work with these young studs. I already mentioned a couple of them. But when you think of Pablo Lopez, Sandy Alcantara, and Sixto Sanchez, you know, especially in a short series where you got 3 thoroughbreds like that, you know, that's pretty unbelievable. I would be nervous as anything if you're an opposing team with those hitters to have to face these 3 guys. I really do. So, you know, again, to me, they're bridging the gap in this thing. So, all right, Rick, what are your the Chicago Cubs left the party a little sooner than expected, and now the Miami Marlins / Florida Marlins are 2-0 against the Cubs in the postseason. And here's another thing that people should understand about the Marlins. They have been in 7 postseason series and have won all of them. Yeah. I mean, albeit they've only been there twice other than here, but now this is their 3rd rodeo in the postseason, but they're 7-0. We know at some point they'll lose a series, but to me, that's pretty impressive. When they get there, they win. It's just a matter of when they get there. But this team amazes me from the top to bottom. And, you know, I'm going with the Marlins. I don't care about it. I know the Braves, the Marlins are on house money. But, all right, David, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Marlins on this one as well. Yeah, as like I've said, except for the 3 years in Seattle, I've lived in the South my whole life, but I've always been a Braves hater. There've been a couple of players there's people all over the world that are they might hate certain sports teams, but they do respect players on certain squads. But I'm going to go with the Marlins on this one, and that's definitely stuff you put up on the bulletin board in the locker room. Okay, we were called bottom feeders. Now here we are in the DS. Like I said, I think if this makes any sense, it's almost like, well, what have they got to lose? They are.
It does make sense. That's exactly the attitude they've got, David. It does.
Yeah. You know, it's,
Run house money, Dave, is what they are.
exactly. I mean, you know, they're on the upswing. Obviously, you know, they're going to have, you know, I'll go out on a limb. Of course, you know, we've all voted for Don Mattingly, Manager of the Year. I'll go ahead and say he's going to be Manager of the Year. You know, in the National League, you know, you got someone like Jeter, you know, leading this thing. You know, all Miami Marlins fans, you know, where they may be, you know, Florida, Arizona, Colorado, you know, Ohio, wherever they are, you've got to be happy for the future. You know, yeah, they, you know, maybe they won't get all the way this year, but, you know, you definitely got to be happy with what's going on down there. And, you know, I'm going to, I think this series might as well go the distance,
Right.
but I will go with the Marlins on this one.
All right, Rick.
Well, I love the Marlins story. I said, you know, that Mattingly should be Manager of the Year, you know, because of all the COVID outbreaks they had. And he rallied, any other team could have just turned on each other. He didn't. He rallied them together, made them stronger. They're in the playoffs. It's a great story. And I wish I love the Marlins a lot, but I'm going to go with the Braves in a very slightly. I'm not the biggest Braves fan. I did like it when they had Maddox and Glavine and Smoltz, but those days are long gone. They finally got that monkey off their back by advancing in the playoffs. And I think the momentum's with them right now. I don't think the Marlins are quite there yet, but I think next year and the other years, absolutely, the future looks bright, and they're young. And they got people like Derek Jeter, and they got Mattingly, one of the most respected managers in all of baseball. So I'm going to go with the Braves, and very slightly go with the Braves. But, man, I would love to see the Marlins do it.
It's fair. Okay. All right. Final series we're going to talk about before we wrap up the broadcast. We've been riding this thing for a long time. So the San Diego Padres, a.k.a. the Slam Diego Padres, are taking on the Dodgers. Globe Life Field, brand new stadium. They probably will let fans over at this venue here. But this one here, I think, could be, I have a feeling this one goes a distance, too. I got to go with the Dodgers to win it, but I'll tell you what, the way San Diego came back and battled against the Cardinals, I think they ended up, they were fell behind 1-0, but then they ended up winning the final two games. So, you know, the San Diego Padres been a great story all year. The Los Angeles Dodgers been the obvious story all year. So I'm going to go with the Dodgers to win this series anyway. So, okay, Rick, you're an LA guy.
Well, I got the Dodgers. You know, they hate each other, the Padres and Dodgers. I grew up in Los Angeles, and I was one. You know, people talk about the Dodgers and the Giants. You know, the Padres do hate each other a lot. I remember when Rick Monday, who used to play for the Dodgers, and he went to San Diego, and they booed him. So, and so they hate each other. So there's that rivalry right there. It's not a big rivalry because the Padres, you know, they haven't really had that much great success in the playoffs or going to the World Series, but it is a rivalry, and they do hate each other. And I expect the Dodgers, you know, well, if we had fans, they get booed, but we don't have any fans. But if we did, they'd be booed in San Diego and vice versa. So I love the Dodgers in this. They've been rolling all season long. The Dodgers have all the pressure on them. If they don't win a World Series this year, they will be the Buffalo Bills of Major League Baseball.
Yeah,
And
the Buffalo Bills. It does. One of the dynamics of these two cities is a lot of the San Diego teams end up going north to LA as well. So the Clippers went up there, right? So and then the Chargers went there. So where if you start in San Diego, you wind up in Los Angeles, except for the Padres who did get a new pad. So all right, Dave Hodges, what is your take on this one?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the Dodgers, you know, they definitely have a lot more to prove in this series, you know, than, you know, San Diego. Obviously, you know, the Dodgers have been there, you know, many times in, you know, the past few seasons, and, you know, San Diego has not. But, you know, again, San Diego's got, you know, such a, you know, a young core. Well, I mean, of course, you know, Manny Machado, he's been around for quite some time. And obviously, you know, you got Fernando Tatis Jr., you know, who, you know, will be, you know, obviously the centerpiece, you know, of that squad. And, you know, and they were very busy, you know, at the trade deadline, of course, getting Clevenger, you know, from the Cleveland Indians. I think this series could go the distance as well. And I'm going to go with San Diego here. You know, I think they're just going to keep riding the wave. You know, they've, you know, as, you know, we've said, you know, week in, week out, it's, you know, it's a feel-good story of the season. in a year that's, really been nothing but misery, for, people on, basically people all over the world. But yeah, San Diego, I think, they got a full head of steam. I know Kershaw dominated the other night, but I'm going to go with San Diego on this one.
Well, it's amazing when you think about the fact that the Dodgers won a World Series in 1981 during the strike-shortened campaign. You almost think that the possibility during an abbreviated season, to say the least, could be there. So they're primed to get this one. Now, Rick, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe Steve Garvey also played for San Diego as well.
Yeah, he did. He did play with them. I remember he was first base. I remember when Pete Rose broke Ty Cobb's record for most career hits, and when he rounded that base, Steve Garvey was right there. So, yeah, he did play for them. There's been a lot of former Dodgers that went there, and a lot of former Padres there. It is a rivalry. They do hate each other there. But it's just the Padres never had that history of doing it. They always talk about the Giants and the Dodgers. They really do hate each other, but Padres and the Dodgers really do hate each other a lot too as well. So I think it'd be a fun rivalry, and I have the Dodgers.
Yeah, like I said, I'm going to stay with the Dodgers as well. So, guys, having a great broadcast tonight. Just so you know, my name is Scott Morganoff from City Madmouth. You're watching and listening to 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My co-hosts are David Hodges as well as Rick Curti. We do this every Monday night. I don't care if you got Monday night football, you get us on Monday nights as well. And, again, we're talking baseball playoffs. And we even sprinkled a little bit of football in here tonight, but we stayed in the same city. So every now and then we can just sprinkle that little piece of connection involved. So with that said, okay, David, why don't you go ahead and lead off and let everybody know how they can go ahead and get a hold of you.
Sure. Yeah, I'm on Facebook, Dave Divino Hodges, Divnho, as I mentioned before. But if you're listening for the first time, huge soccer fan, huge fan of all these Brazilian teams. So I figured I'd give myself, the Brazilian national team, I should say. I figured I'd give myself a Brazilianized nickname. Dave Divino Hodges on Facebook. I'm also on Twitter at Dave Talks Sports. And there you can hit me up, let us know what you think of the program, and even bring up some topics you might like us to talk about in future broadcasts. Again, Dave Divino Hodges on Facebook and on Twitter at Dave Talks Sports.
All right, before I get to Rick Curti, we want to thank him for helping us in the social media department. Rick does a phenomenal job making sure that what we put out there gets spread upon throughout social media. We can't thank Rick enough for being a part of the Tribune. With that said, Rick, go ahead, and then I'll wrap up the broadcast.
Well, you can contact me on my website at www.charlottebats.com. My email address is cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook at Charlotte MLB. We also have another fan page at Charlotte Bats Baseball. I'm also on Twitter at Charlotte Bats Baseball, and I'm also on Instagram at Charlotte Bats. And I'm also on LinkedIn under Rick Curti, Curti. You can contact me on any of those social media websites.
Very good. And with that said, we'll leave us for last. If you want to listen to the audio version of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, you can do so by going to Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'll repeat that again. Yeah, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow us on social media, on Twitter at Tribune South. That's at Tribune South. Facebook and Instagram, South Florida Tribune. Gets it done there. Like us, subscribe, whatever. YouTube channel where this broadcast will be is the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. We encourage you to subscribe. And then by subscribing, not only will you get this show, but you'll also get the Sports Exchange, No Limits, Real and the Rare, Fantasy Football, as well as the South Florida Tribune podcast. And I got to tell you, all these programs here serve a really good purpose. We like to have Tuesday night as our non-sports related night, so we can kind of balance things out a little bit. So you get it all for to subscribe to the South Florida YouTube channel. Now, our website's www.southfloridatribune.com, and our email address is southfloridatribune@gmail.com, as Dave Divino Hodges indicated. If there's any suggestions for ideas and so forth, then by all means, feel free to send them, and we'll be more than happy to bring them out there for you as well. So, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Scott Morganroth. I'll be more than happy to connect with you. So, and following this broadcast, 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, we've got the Sports Exchange with myself, George Eichhorn. We're going to bring a guy by the name of A.J. Ricketts. He's a play-by-play broadcaster for Florida International University, the Golden Panther. So A.J. Ricketts is going to join us tonight on the Sports Exchange following this broadcast. With that said, Rick, nobody does the COVID-19 better than you. So guess what? Do it, please.
Well, I think the whole talk about is how the president got COVID now and everything. So people, this ain't a joke, okay? I mean, even the president of the United States got it, and it's been spreading in the White House like crazy, like wildfire. This thing doesn't care what party you are, don't care what age you are. It's like the Terminator, it's relentless. Please wear a mask. Please wash your hands. Please avoid crowds. Use common sense. Don't be stupid. Don't be Mr. Macho Guy that I can beat this. You're not going to beat this. You get it. You're going to get sick, or you can possibly die. Be safe, and it's not worth it. Just use some common sense, folks.
Couldn't have said any better myself. That's why Rick Curti did it. Meanwhile, on behalf of Rick Curti and David Hodges, my name is Scott Morganroth from Motor City Madmouth. Thanking you for joining us on this edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Until the next time, good night, everybody.